What's up, guys? This is Tim Hurley, and I'm here with Mark Taco Annino. I just joined the Zoom call here, and Taco signed in. What's that about? Let's cut right to the chase.
Yeah, it's pretty much a nickname that I have had it for years. The story goes that back in 2008-ish, 9 circa then, I was in a rock band that was signed to Jive Records, actually named Atom Smash. And that the lead singer of that band, I auditioned, whatever. I got into the band, everything was great. On the road, it was kind of a joke about just my name kind of being sort of boring when you introduced me on stage, I guess. So anyway, what was funny was it kind of became this ongoing joke that we had this alter ego 80s kind of cover band thing that we did down in South Florida, which is where I'm from, which was that band was from there. And we all had fictitious names, and we did the get up and the wigs and the whole thing. We'd play go do Halloween parties or whatever. We were a real band, but we had, we just had fun with the 80s get up thing. And
love it. My name on the side.
Oh yeah. My name was Taco Rico was my fictitious name for the 80s cover band thing. So
did you have to give approval on that one, or did you just accept it graciously?
I did. Well, it was fine for that. But then when we started touring and he would introduce me on stage as Taco, and everyone remembered that. It was very hard to forget that name. So afterwards, he would introduce me as Mark, but no one would really oh, that's the drummer, right? And then when he started introducing me on stage as Taco, everyone after the shows was always there's Taco, and they would beeline for anytime I introduce myself to people they always take a second, be like, is that really his name? No, but it kind of stuck for years, man. And I fought it at first. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want this on any sort of official documents or anything like that. I want to use my real name. But eventually it kind of just stuck, and everyone in Nashville knows me as Taco. So
that's awesome. The things we do for fame, the price of fame.
And it was totally accidental. And yeah, I mean, it worked out. Now I don't even think about it. It's been so long. It doesn't even affect me. I'll answer to either.
I love it. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to call you both here through the course of this interview.
Oh yeah. You can totally go with Taco. Taco is fine. That's for this format. And like I said, in the country industry and what I'm doing now, that everyone knows me as Taco. So it'll be more recognizable that way. I think people might be like, Mark, who's Mark?
Well, let's rewind a bit. You are the drummer for Morgan Wallen touring, and we rewind even more. So you mentioned you're from South Florida. Where exactly are you from?
Broward County, Pembroke Pines is the city, but you're pretty much just it's Fort Lauderdale. It's pretty much Fort Lauderdale area. More on the west side, not the west side of the state, but the west side of the city. So just before the Everglades.
Yeah, beautiful area
out there. Yeah, so I was born and raised there. Lived in Nashville for 7 years now.
But so you said you started out in a rock band, major rock band. Was that your original influence, rocker, or what was your first genre of music that you loved?
I mean, growing up in school, I started playing drums in 4th grade. Everything in school is very school band or jazz and stuff like that. So I kind of learned a lot of my beginning stuff with, how-to tapes of Dave Weckl and Buddy Rich and just things like that. And I kind of got into, I was doing jazz band in school. So, but I always, once I kind of figured out what modern music was, I was old enough to understand it. I was into bands the first modern day bands I was into was Green Day and Blink-182. And that's kind of where I Travis Barker and those guys, that's where I learned how to oh, this is today's music. So this is what, now I'm finding my niche of what music I like. And of course that evolved, but no, I was say it just evolved from there.
I was going to say, you're every kid or every parent's worst nightmare. The kid wants to take up the drums. So you said you started in the 4th grade. How did that work? Yeah. You started in school. So did you just pick your instrument, or where was the passion from?
I was lucky enough in elementary school, which is very rare, that they had a band program. Most elementary schools that I know of, they have a music. They'll have a special every week where you'll do art and you'll do music, and they kind of just touch on basics from playing recorder and things like that. But this school actually had a extracurricular band program, which is very rare for an elementary school.
Was it a public school?
Yeah, it's public school.
Even more rare, right? Because that's usually one of the first budgets that get cut in a lot of our school systems, music and arts. So.
Oh yeah. So I was very fortunate to have that. And when I went in, I didn't know what I was going to play. I mean, I didn't necessarily have a love for drums then. I mean, like I didn't know what I was going to have a love in as far as an instrument. I knew I wanted to do music. Maybe it interested me, whatever. So the first day they go in there, everyone's kind of like trying instruments out. And, I tried a couple horns and just nothing really nothing felt right. And then I saw this concert snare drum and I thought I'd try that out. And I really liked it. I picked up the sticks and was like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give this a shot.
Now, was your teacher supportive right off the bat? Were you a natural? Were you getting some? Because drums are super complicated for a lot of people. The rhythm, people don't, they imagine just going nuts on it all the time. But the actual elementary part of drumming is, super technical.
Absolutely. I actually, when I first started on that concert snare drum, I didn't know that I had the ability to play like a full drum set. I just started doing that, read music, playing with the concert band. And then one day, so there's a movie, which I always tell the story, but the movie is That Thing You Do, which is a Tom Hanks movie.
Oh, for sure.
And that was on like basic cable. I don't think it ever went to the theater. I think it was like straight to DVD, and it would just happen to be on basic cable. And
is that true? Because I remember that movie being like a smash.
It was, but I don't think it was in the theater. I have to go back and look. I don't think it was a movie. It maybe, and I was just too young to realize it, but.
If that's the case, you're going to break my heart, by the way.
I'll have to go research that now that we're talking about it, because I never thought about it that way. I just remember us watching it was broadcasting on cable. And I recorded it to VHS because that's the only way you could do that back then. So I recorded it to VHS, absolutely fell in love with the movie and more drums than anything. Like I was like, wow, this is like a thing. And I built a drum set after I watched the movie. I built a drum set out of whatever I could find at home, boxes, trash cans, you name it, old toys, whatever. I had the real snare drum from school, so I used that. And then I used to put the VCR and the TV next to me, and I would just keep rewinding the tape and just playing all the songs from the movie. And that's how I learned how to, that's when I realized I had coordination. And my dad kind of came home one day and saw me doing this, and he's like, I guess we got to get him a real drum set. So that's
crazy. So did it actually sound like the parts in the movie? Were you actually able using your little hodgepodge? It was pretty close.
I didn't have a kick drum, I didn't have a pedal. So it was just hands,
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, I definitely was able to see that I had coordination. I was able to follow along with what was going on. Like I said, this is almost fifth grade. So yeah, then in fifth grade, I had my first drum set, and my band director there, I brought it into school one day. We did I played full band drums, like drums with the concert band for our end of the year concert. And then it snowballed from there. I went right into middle school, played drums in jazz band, high school drum line, played drums there. And it wasn't until sixth or seventh grade where I actually got into my first band. I met other kids that played instruments, and they found out I could play drums. And that's how people knew who I was. I wasn't super popular in school. I didn't really, I had friends, but I wasn't I was in band. That was it. It was band and academics. And that was it.
So how'd you get linked up with that first rock band?
So interesting that. So it was all kids in band. One of them was he played bass in jazz band, and another kid was a horn player. And then we kind of just all got together one day at my house because I had the drums, and we started jamming, and we just started writing our own songs. And that band was called Lithium was the name of that band. We were a pop punk ska band, actually. Yeah.
Very cool.
Another buddy of ours played trombone, and we started doing we were too young to play local shows, so we were playing block parties and stuff like that, things like that. But then there was a venue in Fort Lauderdale called the Culture Room. Pretty big, maybe a 600 cap club, but bands used to come through all the time, One Tour Bus bands, and a lot of underground rock and stuff used to come there. And a lot of the bands that we liked and were listening to, we'd go to concerts there. And we met the owner. We always tried to get a show there. And there was this one show, I think it was 18 Visions, that was supposed to headline with Thursday and Coheed and Cambria were supposed to play the amphitheater that wasn't far away. And I think the singer for 18 Visions, he had a cyst in his throat or something, and they had to cancel. Well, Thursday and Coheed still wanted to play. So the Culture Room invited Thursday and Coheed to come play the same night. And then in exchange for us going to the amphitheater and passing out flyers and directing everybody to the Culture Room, he let us open the show. So that was our first real club show.
I love that. That's your paid gig.
Opening. Yeah.
It's your first pay to play experience.
Yeah, exactly. So that was it. It's all, obviously in between there was a lot of growing, but yeah, Adam Smash, the band that I brought up before, was an active rock band signed to Jive Records. Had a like a top 20 single. We played on Octane. So on Sirius. So that was kind of like the first professional thing that I did. It was still, we were touring with 12 Stones and Red, and we did a Filter tour. We did we played with a lot of those like Octane band rock bands and stuff, which was cool. And then at the end of 20, that's 2010. So I fast forwarded pretty far, but at the end of that we got dropped from the label. The label folded, actually. Jive folded down to like just being Sony. So at the time it was just like, well, the label's folding, you guys are doing well, but we decided to kind of just part ways. And that was it for a while. I was in South Florida playing with cover bands, doing theater. And then the singer for that band called me up one day because he had moved to Knoxville and he was vocal coaching Morgan before he went on The Voice.
So you literally moved to Nashville knowing that you might have an opportunity with Morgan Wallen.
Yeah, I had no plans on moving to Nashville. I always thought about doing it, but I didn't want to do it blind.
Wow.
That was kind of I wanted to have a reason, at least, even if it was a chance. I just wanted to have something to do. I didn't want to just kind of move to town and start, just running around trying to meet people. Like sure. I was doing well in South Florida for myself, like playing drums. Like I had my own little career. So the singer for that band, Adam Smash, he was moved up to Knoxville after we were kind of done with things. And he was doing vocal coaching while he was in Knoxville, and Morgan was going to go audition for The Voice. And he hadn't really done any professional singing at all, aside from just singing at home and at church and writing on his, his garage and whatnot. But so he's like, I'm gonna go get some lessons. So I think his mom found our singer. His name is Sergio, who, like I said, was in Knoxville at the time. And he just started vocal coaching Morgan, started writing with him. He went and did the show, came off the show, and then he was like, man, we got to keep working with this kid. So
what?
I was like, all right, well,
that is an insane story. I don't think anyone's ever heard that before. That's crazy. Yeah. No clue that's how it went down.
Our bass player, Luke, in Morgan's band, played guitar in that rock band. So we called him up. And our guitar player, Dominic, he was, we knew him through mutual family members that he recorded on some of Morgan's first EPs that we did down in Florida, actually. And we're like, man, he was like 18. I was like, do you want to play live? He's like, yeah, sure. So he lived in North Carolina. I was like, cool. So we all just kind of came to Knoxville, played a couple local shows with Morgan, and then had a couple of meetings set up in Nashville for him to go over there. And every time we came out here, it was like, man, you got to move here. You got to move here. You got to move here. So I was like, all right, I guess we're moving to Nashville. So we all moved here together. I mean, I was here before Morgan was.
So it's been a family from day one. Oh
yeah. And and every person that comes on board since has been inducted into that family. But it's, man, it's kind of crazy. It's crazy. I tell people that I'm like, yeah, I've been here for 7 years. I met Morgan 7 years ago. Like we were
gosh. Well, as you mentioned before, most people move to Nashville and they run around and they try and get in the cliques. And it is so incestuous and it's such a business, such a game. You are so fortunate to get in there with your feet on the ground. Now, how did you grow the family a little bit? Because obviously the songwriting family, you're talking Hardy, and I know you guys are on tour with Hardy now. So how did that whole group forge where, you guys became the powerhouse that you are now?
Yeah. So, after we moved here, Morgan had taken some meetings with booking agents and tried to get some label and publishing meetings as well. And as we were here, it was about a year of doing that. But we got in with a booking agency and started playing like one-off 3-hour, 4-hour cover gigs in Virginia and kind of just getting our feet wet as a band. It's like, go play, and Morgan had some songs he was writing, and eventually that booking agent, got him a meeting at Big Loud, which is his label and management now and publishing. And we went in there. He went in there. We played acoustic for all the partners, the label, and we did 3 songs. And then he was they talked to him about signing a deal right
on
there.
The spot.
So,
on the spot.
Yeah, within a week probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
How are the butterflies on that acoustic performance?
They were there for sure. It was a conference room performance. So it's, those are always a little I'm playing cajon,
Yeah.
there's one acoustic, like that's it. It was just three of us playing that. But
And like zero
yeah,
vibe, zero vibe. You just have the
oh
suits,
yeah.
so to,
You just
so
gotta,
to speak,
yep,
staring at you. Was Scott Burchetta in
yep.
the room?
No, he was
He
not.
was. Oh no, he's not Big Loud. That's Big Machine.
No,
So
that's Big Machine.
was
Yeah.
Craig Wiseman in the room?
Craig was there, Joey Moy, Seth England, they were all in there. Yeah.
Wow. And so, did you know who those guys were at that time, or was it
I
like?
knew who Joey was. Because I was, I went through listening to Nickelback and all that stuff too, which he was obviously very affiliated with. And yeah, I was very familiar who Joey was. I didn't really know the other two. I did know that Big Loud was, I think, management wise associated with FGL. So like I knew that they managed them. But I was just learning. I was learning about that part of the industry in that way. Like from the world I came from, it was nothing like that,
Yep.
So it was all a learning experience for all of us. And every year is still a learning experience, but yeah, it all worked out really well. I mean, I'm super blessed, and I'm not saying that coming to Nashville and blind like that and doing it is wrong. There's a lot of people that I know that have done it that way and
Sure.
are very successful. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. And that was just because I think I had a pretty good scene going on in South Florida. And if I was going to cut that tie, when I moved, I was like, I'll give it a year. I'll give it a year. I'll get a job, I'll get a place, whatever. If nothing's really vibing or it's not really kind of progressing at all, then I'll just go back home, and every year was a gradual increase from the year before. It's kind of crazy. Everything was growing as it was supposed to.
And Morgan kind of skyrocketed. His growth was like very quick as well. How was that ride? I mean, because now you guys are playing some of the biggest arenas that you can play in the United States of America.
Oh yeah. It was a hell of a ride, man. Like it was, doing those first opening tours, like when he first put The Way I Talk out, which was the first single he put out on that EP. And we were opening for Chris Lane. We did a Granger Smith tour. And there's all like small clubs, line dance bars, stuff like that. But I mean, those are normal touring spots at that level. And then here came Michael Hardy with Up Down. And that just changed the game at that point. When that song came around towards the end of, I want to say 2018, because 2017 we did radio tour for The Way I Talk. We pretty much went around the country 5 days a week playing for radio stations, they were introducing Morgan to radio. But then at the end of that year, Up Down was written and they got a hold of it, and Morgan they wanted him to record it, and he did, and that kind of just started the whole thing. Like just the cartwheel just went from there.
That was definitely a pivotal song for you guys. I'm in a band, and we actually opened for you guys at the Asparagus Festival in Stockton, California.
That's right. You were saying that.
And Up Down had come out like, I don't know, maybe a month before, but it was already like a massive, massive hit. I think Morgan was scheduled to tour with FGL that year, maybe even that summer. When
I think it was that following year. Yeah.
And he's like contractually obligated to play the Asparagus Festival. And I'm like, this is so funny. Like this dude's about to just absolutely blow up. Was it a little bit jolting though? Because I remember at the time he was a really reserved guy. The mullet was not there yet. He was a little bit shy. And I remember him saying like going to the grocery store got a little weird because all of a sudden from one day to the next, people started recognizing him. And all of a sudden in town, you guys are probably getting all sorts of recognition that you didn't have, 24 hours prior. How was it to have a shift that quick?
Man, for me, it was pretty exciting because I've wanted to do it my whole life. So like I was almost prepared for it, even though I didn't prepare for it, like I was ready for it. But honestly, for Morgan, yeah, he was, at that time he was learning himself as an artist, it's when something happens that quick, you don't really have time to figure it out. You kind of have to figure it out as you're going. And that's kind of what we all did a little bit. Like, the recognition for us wasn't as crazy as one might think. I still go around town now to certain places and, I don't get recognized, and that's totally fine. Like, I'm okay with that.
Are you okay? Have you ever been a touch jealous? Is a question I love to ask because, part of this whole podcast is to feature people that, in my opinion, don't get the recognition they deserve. A lot of really, really talented people. You've never thought, what, like, I wish it was my name up there. And like, I wish I was this, the draw or anything.
No. I mean, if I was younger, maybe, but like I said, the Atom Smash thing for me, I kind of got my fulfillment with that. being in that band, because that was like a band. So it wasn't an artist gig. It wasn't a hired gun gig. Like I was in the photos, on the records, all that stuff. And I kind of got like I said, I got my fulfillment out of that. So as I got older, it's more like, well, how do I make this a career, and not just a hobby? Sure. And, and once you make that switch mentally, you're like, okay, it's still fun, but it's a job. Once you treat it like a job, you don't really think about it that way. I mean, there's a lot of recognition from the industry. Like we have friends that play for other artists, and you can go to like local spots in town. You're always going to run into people, and that stuff we all kind of, we all support each other and, want to know what everyone's doing, what your dates look like. It's kind of a big community out here. As far as like the tourist part of it and people coming into town, like, no, it doesn't bother me if I'm like on Broadway one night and no one knows that it's me. Like
that's probably
if someone
nice.
asks,
that's probably nice.
I mean, it's fine. Even if they did, it'd be fine too. Like if someone asks, I'll have the conversation. Like I'm not going to go in there and be like, hey, I'm here. Look, this is what I do. I'm not going to do that.
Are you single or are you in a relationship?
I'm in a relationship. Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say if you were single, you might wear it on the T-shirt or something like
maybe,
that. But,
maybe
get through it that way. Have you ever been a hired gun? It sounds like
this
your
is my
career
first
path,
one.
And this isn't my first one. This still feels like a band to you because you've been doing it for so long now, right?
Absolutely. It's a very rare. I know there are a few acts that have it that way. I know Luke Combs' guys, I think, have all from his hometown, most of them anyway. And I know the Aldine guys have been with Aldine for a very long time. So there's not a lot of that, but when it happens, it's really cool.
Do you ever get jealousy from other players in town that are like, man, this dude just came into Nashville, didn't cut his teeth, didn't pay his dues in town. Not fair. Like, do you ever feel that?
I mean, I'm conscious of it, like I know that I was very lucky in this scenario. So I never I'm always appreciative of the people that were here for a long time before getting a gig that was something they wanted or their dream coming true in a way. But honestly, I think everyone's cut their teeth in some format. Like, I mean, I was touring in, van trailers and sleeping in random places and whatnot, all through that rock stage. So, I mean, I cut my teeth. I just didn't do it here.
Sure.
But all the relationships and the time that I put in back then is what and eventually led me to meet Morgan. So, I mean, there's always a way to connect, why you deserve to be in the position that you're in,
Yeah.
There's not one road to this essentially.
No, certainly not. So playing these major venues now, you've gone, as you just said, you've gone from playing bars, you've been sleeping in vans. How different is it now to rolling in on the tour bus? You guys are the headliners. You're, supposedly treated like royalty. Does it feel like that? Does it feel, I mean, the tour life is foreign to a lot of our listeners, right? So how is it different, being the headlining act at a big stadium, big arena compared to, sleeping in the van?
Well, yeah, like kind of what I was saying before too, is like you almost get prepared for this without even knowing you're being prepared for it. It's like every show you play every year is just training for what's to come, is if the growth is happening. So when you get to that level, you don't, I mean, it's amazing, but you don't get it's like, oh, like I've done everything up to this point. So like it's kind of just the next thing. So like it seems really big when you're the opener and you see all the stuff the headliner has and how it takes a small army to put on their show. And you're like, man, it would be so cool to be them. Right. And then eventually by the time you get to be them, it doesn't seem as big from the inside looking out, it is. And we appreciate it, but it feels like this is where, this is where you're supposed to be now, kind of a thing.
Having gone through it so quickly, do you see yourself as a mentor to some of the acts that, you guys that are opening up for you?
Absolutely. We actually talked about that the other day because since we've been a headliner or the past, I guess, almost a year now, we've been out with Hardy a lot, which is great. And we love those guys. The Ernest guys have been out with us a lot. So everything's been very family. Like we've toured with Hardy before in 2019, we did a club tour. Yeah. He was our direct support then too. And we had Lainey Wilson was out with us, and she was new. What we were talking about was it's going to be interesting when we get to maybe next year or whenever we do our next tour, where we kind of start parting from Hardy a little bit. And we have fresh blood of artists coming out on the road with us that are where we were when we were touring and opening for FGL and Luke Combs and all those guys. And that's when it's going to feel like, oh, Like, okay. Because right now it's like really we're just on tour with a bunch of friends. Like there are no hierarchies other than just the time slot you play. Like everyone's equals and you don't really think about it that way. But when we have some fresh blood out there, it'll be awesome to actually be able to, to pass on, some advice or help bring those people up and get them going like we were passed on when we were them.
I've seen you play on a couple of Hardy songs as well. It looks like live. So how is that? Were those major venues or were you like filling in for somebody in those shows?
Yeah.
Or how did that work out?
Last year when we were off the road, the Hardy's drummer had like an elbow injury, I think. And yeah, that's what it was. And he called me up last minute, was like, hey, I don't know what you're doing this weekend, but I can't play. And I was like, okay. So I had like 3 days notice and they sent me a recording and I went and learned the show in 3 days and jumped on the bus, no rehearsal, just
no
went
big deal.
The weekend. Yep. I mean, I knew a lot of the songs anyway, cause I'm a fan, so I would be listening to Hardy songs anyway. So it wasn't like learning something you've never heard before, which makes it for drumming, it makes it a lot easier, but, or I'm sure for anybody. So then after that weekend, he called me, we talked on the phone. He's like, man, I don't know how long this is going to be a thing. Like I got to go see some doctors and kind of figure out what's going on. I'm like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know what the next few months of your life look like, but you might be the guy here for a while. So long story short, I ended up playing 50 shows with Hardy last year.
Wow.
2021.
That's crazy.
I played from end of May to the first week of October and started Morgan rehearsals the second week of October. I literally played with Hardy all summer until we started up rehearsals for the Morgan tour.
Was that during Morgan's, we'll call it a hiatus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it was during the hiatus and he was, I think they were just working on stuff too for the fall, but we came back in the fall of October of last year with our fall dates. Yeah.
So he was obviously going through a bit of controversy there. Were you impacted in that in your personal life? Did people look at you a little bit different because of your association with Morgan Wallen during that time?
No, not at all.
You could speak, freely about it and no issue. Did you guys, were you non-disclosure agreements or anything like that? Were you kind of handcuffed a bit as to what you could say toward media?
Yeah. I mean, there's always things like that you put in place just for anyone, but I mean, we didn't really need it because there was no reason. No one was barking down our doors for anything,
And very cool that you were able to fill the time in while touring with Hardy, somebody that you were very close with, and filled a bunch of dates for you. So
loved
you
it.
like
especially after COVID, like, no one was touring the year before that. So when I got to go back out on the road with Hardy, I mean, like, man, I went nuts because it was like the first time I got back on the road in a year. Cause we were touring every year, 100, 150 dates a year. And then
must have been a little antsy. Yeah. That must have driven you nuts.
Have to be. The break was nice at first. And the reason why it was nice because when COVID first started, no one knew what it was going to really end up being in the long run. So when we got pulled off the road, it was like, we're off till this date. Oh, cool. We get like 2 weeks off. That's no biggie, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks turned into a month turned into 2 months, 2 months turned into 6 months, 6 months turned into like a year. So yeah, that was hard to just stop playing shows. We had a whole year of dates still to play. It was only February of 2020. So we had just gotten started for the year.
That's nuts.
So it was nice to be back out with the Hardy, like going out on the road and doing that with those guys. And, everyone was coming, the touring industry was coming back. So it was just awesome to be part of that. And then that rolled right into dates with Morgan. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for a better situation, based on not being like needing to work,
So you're the quarterback. When you're up on stage, you are the one programming the backing tracks. You've got the clicks in your ear. You are quarterbacking the entire band. Do you like that kind of pressure? Is there ever a day when you're like, dude, I wish I could just go out, play my part and be done with the show? Or do you really embrace that role?
I embrace it. I'm the music director, or band leader, whichever one. They both kind of mean the same thing. And I never had done it before. I was just the one, when we put the band together, I was just kind of the one that stepped forward and just started doing that stuff. Learned how to do tracks. I had never done tracks before. I'd played to a click and done that, but we never had in-ears or did any of that stuff back in the day. So I was learning how to do all that. And yeah, no, I love it now. Now I've learned so much. I built other people's tracks rigs for them. If I'll program all their shows and show the drummer how to use it and send them on their way. But
It's a little bit of a side business for you as well, right? I mean, now that you've got this is like a big platform for yourself. Let's hear the 30-second brief for all the bands out there that could use someone to coordinate this for them.
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly though, it was funny about you say that because if I any drummers that have messaged me on Instagram or like people that I know in the town that are coming up or just getting gigs with artists, my first question is, how well do you know Ableton? Or how well do you know, what do you know about tracks? Sure. And it stinks in the sense that like, it sucks that that's kind of become what can define your role. Cause you could be a phenomenal drummer and know nothing about tracks, and that could hurt you actually.
Sure.
But I think it's a good thing to learn anyway. And some bands, it's not the drummer. Sometimes it's their keyboard player or their guitar player that does all that stuff. So, I mean, it's okay, but I think it's good for all drummers to have a knowledge of it. Cause any starting act, when they do a tracks rig, they're always going to put it on the drum riser and they're going to have the drummer press play. So like, You might as well know how to do it. And if the sooner you dive into teaching yourself how to do it, the better you're going to be as you go on.
Very cool.
Yeah. I like doing it. It can be frustrating sometimes, but it all depends on how you build your show. And I have our show built pretty seamless to where it's flexible. We can change songs out. We can change the orders of songs, whatever we want to do. I make it. There's a lot of acts out there that do, and I'm not afraid to say it. And I don't mean any disrespect, but there's a lot of acts out there that rely on those computers to help with their shows. I mean, there's production aspects that are very important, which is everyone, like lighting and pyro and stuff and video. You need to be playing to a click in order to have those elements. So that's normal. But I always tell people, like, our tracks, I run our computers do not run us. So we are very much a live band up there. And then the computer those tracks rigs are just adding on to the parts that we can't physically play because we're only 6 people. Right. And albums have a lot of layers, and you want to have all those layers there because, the producer specifically wanted those layers in there because that's what makes the song sound like the song. So we're very true to doing the record and trying to make it sound as much like the record as possible, with a couple of maybe live things that we'll do to make it more like just something different live that doesn't sound like the record. But that's pretty much our MO.
Have you ever had a catastrophic failure up on stage in a big show where it's like, oh dear, that didn't go right?
Yep. I mean, honestly, it's always technology driven. And it's the stuff that I've learned as I've gone on, like we're talking when we were first of 4 on the Luke Bryan tour, went on his Stadium XL tour that we did in 2018. Yeah. Man, you play a stadium at 5:00 in the afternoon and we don't have any crew. It's just the band and a bus driver and a bus, and we're setting everything up ourselves. We're building our own lights, and that tracks rig is sitting out in the sun all day. And then you try to go play a show and then the computer starts overheating and tracks start cutting out, and that stuff happens. But because of those experiences is why I build the show the way I do. If something were to go down now, it wouldn't be catastrophic. We could just play. We also have 2 new band members the end of last year. So now we have a 6-piece band, which allows us to have more instrumentation on stage.
Sure. Sounds a little more full regardless then.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. It's happened. It's happened to everyone. And when it happens, you figure out why, and then you make adjustments to make sure that one thing will never happen again. But you don't know what's going to happen next. So something else will then happen, and you teach yourself how to fix that problem. That's just how you do it. Eventually, you have enough problems to where your tracks rig is a tank, and it's, very rarely would ever go down. And that's what you do until you get to a level where you can hire someone to just deal with it. But
knock it out. Did you ever have any repercussions from Morgan? Any look backs where he's like giving you the look of death, or was he always pretty cool about any mistakes that happened up on stage?
No, he's great on stage. We've never had any of that. If anything, he's probably had his moments where he looks back and sees if we're looking at him, if anything. but that was back in the day. Now it's all, everything's pretty solid. We spent a lot of time. Like I said, it's that played with each other for so long that you get really tight and you're very comfortable on stage with each other, and everyone can lean on everyone, and that's what you want, your crew included. You start getting your crew together, and your techs and your monitor engineer and your front of house guy, and you want to trust all those people. And develop those relationships, because when you're on stage, you just want to be comfortable that you have a staff of people with you that got your back, and you can just get up there and perform the best show that you can perform and not have to worry about any of the technical stuff because someone's watching it for you.
So you guys are on the road right now with Hard. You already made it clear you guys are very tight with all the band members. We talked offline a little bit about your friendships with the other bands. These guys both like to rock. They both like to party. They both all like have, everybody likes to have a good time. How crazy does it actually get behind the scenes before, during, after these shows?
It doesn't, it's kind of funny because anyone I talk to that's never been backstage or knows, like, it's always like, oh man, it must be nuts. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, it is a job. I mean, it's fun. We have a great time with each other, and there's days off when we'll, cut loose or go have a few beers or whatever. But like, man, during the day, we wake up, we have our routines, we work out, we do our sound check, and then, everyone, it is a job. It's not even that it's a job. It's that we have to do it 3 days. And for the crew, especially, like, those guys are the first ones up and the last ones to bed every day. You gotta be able to do that again, 2 more times. So you don't really want to do it, like, go crazy, because you want to have energy to do it. Like, trust me, I've had nights where I've maybe had one too many, and I wake up the next morning, I'm like, today's going to stink, and I just don't want to do that. So you do that once or twice, and then it doesn't happen. But the craziest thing, the best example I can give is when you're younger and you're doing the club dates, there's a lot more access. When you're doing smaller clubs and there's smaller crowds and everyone's very close knit, including the crowd. Like I said, you're driving a van or you got one bus, you have no crew, you're doing everything yourself. And it's a little easier for those situations to go a little sideways. But when you get to this point, everything is you're so secluded. I mean, we pull in the morning, we're backstage all day. The crowd doesn't get in till 6. And then by the time the show's over, it's 11, and we're leaving in 2 hours. So there's really it's not what people think. Now, sometimes there's a lot of guests that come, and, like, obviously we host people that, either whether it be radio or whatnot, like, and they have a good time, but, and it's not that we're not, we just, we try to keep it, walk a straight line,
Yeah, makes total sense. Yeah, they're cutting loose for a night. You guys got to do it for a living here. So it makes total sense. So the tour bus, obviously tight quarters. You guys are going to be on the road for a long time in tight stretches. I'm sure personalities come into play, a little bit of conflict every once in a while. Is there any kind of pet peeve that you have on the tour bus when somebody does something that just drives you nuts every single time?
Yeah, and the guys will all make fun of me when they hear this, but for me, it's literally leaving half-drink beverages all over the place. I got somebody. I have that OCD in me. So if there's people on the bus and there's stuff sitting around, that's fine. It could be any one of theirs. But when there's no one on the bus, and I walk through and there's just soda cans or water bottles or whatever it is, I just take it all and I just throw it all away. I'm like, we got plenty of this stuff. Like, if it was really theirs, they can grab another bottle of water. It's fine. That's my pet peeve. I'm kind of a neat freak at home anyway. So that's pretty much the only pet peeve I have.
I feel like that's synonymous with drummers. A little OCD goes a long way.
It does. It definitely does.
Have there ever been any hygiene issues on the bus? Because you guys are rolling with some dudes. Any smelly kids on the bus that you want to call out right now?
I can't speak for any of the other buses, but for mine, no. We actually, all of us are really, some of us are really into to fragrances, actually. So the bus we usually have, some of us could have anywhere from 4 to 8 different colognes on the road with us on a particular weekend. So the bus always smells really good. I'm not really worried about that.
That's a good endorsement right there.
And we have a shower on the bus. So, I mean, and there's plenty of places to shower in the venue. So if you're not showering, I mean, it's not like the rock days where, like, you rode in a van, you played a show, you got to drive 4 hours to the next city and you don't get a hotel, and that's different. The van days may be a little different, but no, it's fine. Like I said, can't speak for other buses. Haven't been on those buses with those guys, but I'm sure everyone takes care of themselves. So I'm not really worried about
funny.
it. Yeah.
All right. You got to give us a little dirt on Morgan Wallen. Does he have any weird habits, any idiosyncrasies that we need to know about that you've only seen behind the scenes? Everybody always pulls back when I ask this question.
Well, no, it's not pulling back. It's actually really just thinking of one, because It's hard to tell. It's hard because they're really, I mean, he has his routines through the day, and his schedule is pretty, as far as like, his waking up and working out and stuff. He's got to meet with radio or go do this or whatever. So there's really not any time to, I don't, there's some days that go by that we don't see each other until right before the show, and that's not by choice. It's just the way the day goes. So
sure.
I'm trying to think of like something that would be really interesting.
Oh, we'll get it next time.
Yeah,
It's something to marinate on for sure. We mentioned it
I've never thought about it, so I'd have to think about it.
That's a good sign.
I've known him for so long that if there are any, it's probably just normal to me now. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not, I wouldn't know if it was. Someone else might be like, yeah, that's kind of weird, but like for me, it's like, no, that's just a Tuesday or, Thursday, whatever.
That's really funny. That's awesome. We talked about it earlier. You've got amazing social media and your website is really great. You have something called Taco Cam where people can see your perspective of you playing the drums. Sometimes it's over your head so they can see the crowd and stuff like that. I want to give you, well, actually before anything, you mentioned earlier too, drummers hit you up all the time. Are you receptive to up and coming drummers hitting you up for ideas, tips, mentorship?
And yeah, absolutely. And honestly, like you have to, with anything like that, like you have to find a way to sift through what the messages you're getting, So I look at them all. And then I'll kind of just gauge on what I'm being asked and like what, like that'll kind of trigger me to want, like I can kind of tell just by the verbiage used and why they're asking the question. Sometimes you get messages that are just like, why no? Like I know that I'm going to say no, so I'm just not going to respond. But I try to be very receptive because if it were me, I'd want them to be receptive. If I was, when I was up and coming, if I was messaging drummers that I looked up to or were watching or keeping track of, I'd want them to respond. So why wouldn't I do that for them? It could be one message return, be one question. It could be a conversation for a couple of days and then that's it. But I'm sure I probably made that person's day by responding to their message and answering a simple question like, what kind of drumsticks do you use? Like, it's not that hard to answer that question,
Very cool.
Especially when you're endorsed by, especially gear questions. Gear questions are my favorite because I am endorsed by companies that keep my gear up to date on the road. And I want to make sure I'm promoting those products because I believe in those products. So if someone's asking me about cymbals and sticks and drums and stuff, I'm going to tell them what I use and why. And that's fine. I have no problem.
You're going to CC the company that's endorsing you to make sure they know you're doing your job.
Yeah. And it's in my contracts. So,
That's awesome. Well, what are your social media handles so everybody can find you?
Instagram is Mark Taco Drums. Facebook is just Mark. Yeah, it's also Mark Taco Drums.
Cool. We'll make sure to link it as well. So it'll be easy breezy to tell.
And then website is marktacodrums.com.
That I got to say is definitely worth a look because your footage is awesome. It's super fun to watch.
I have to thank some of the ones that are really close up are like GoPro stuff that I'll do on my own. But a lot of the recap videos and like a lot of the photos and stuff is David Lair, who does our content on the road for Morgan. He's a beast, and every week he'll send us some photos or and I don't know if you've checked into any of the Mechanics Wanted stuff that we do.
Yeah.
But he films all of that stuff too. So he's the director behind all that too, which is cool.
Another tell us about that project real quick.
Yeah, that was a COVID project. We were bored and it was shortly before we got pulled off the road. We were just in the back of the bus and Heartless had come out not too long before that. And we were just in the back of the bus, like, man, how sick would Heartless be as like a metal cover? And a lot of our guys are kind of metalheads. Some of them are, or came from a version of that.
Yeah,
and
you can tell that during the shows.
Yeah, we were just in the bus, just working on. We were just like, this might be cool. We just started like screwing around with metal licks to Heartless, and then when we finished the song, and I was like, that's cool. Like that was fun. And then during COVID, we're like, we should shoot a video for that. And we have, we're pretty close with like our production team and we have some resources that we can use and we did it for fun and it came out so good. And we're like, man, we should do more of these, and we did positions with, we had Ashlyn Kraft. That was the first time we had a guest vocal. We're like, we should get another artist to come be on this. That'd be cool. And that kind of turned into something. So then we did Monsters and we had Ernest.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 we have out now. And we have a 4th that we will, you all will see soon or have more information on. So
all right. Keeping it. See, I see what's going on here. I see what's
I
going
actually
on.
don't know what date we're going to release it, or else I would plug it. So, but once I do, I'll make sure to get it out there. But yeah, the website is cool. I built that myself, you know.
It's a great one. It's a great one for sure. You've been really good about sharing the behind the scenes and your talents as well. So
I need more taco can videos though. I've been slacking on those since we got back on the road with Morgan, and I need to do some Morgan ones. So I'm coming soon.
It'd be great to see. Well, man, thank you so much for hanging with me. I got so much more I could ask you. So hopefully we can do this again real soon. And,
I would love to.
It's awesome. And have a great time on the road. I know you guys are traveling like crazy, so I really appreciate you making the time.
Of course, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No doubt. All right. This is Taco. We'll see you soon.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.